For 2 years, one adjective. For 2 years, one adjective carried the heaviest penalty in Indian law. Reasonable, as in reasonable security safeguards, with 250 crore rupees riding on whatever it turned out to mean, and every CISO in the country asked to hit a target nobody had drawn. Rule 6 draws the target: encryption, access control, logs with monitoring kept for a year, backups, contracts that push all of it down to your processors. The adjective finally has a noun list, a floor with names. Today, the named minimums, one by one, mapped onto a program a real organization can run. And because this series never forgets, episode 10, evidence. The floor is where compliance starts. The evidence of the floor is where defense starts. You're listening to DPDP Daily. I'm Harmeet Singh Kapoor. I've spent my career running large programs and portfolios, the discipline of making complex things actually happen, and for the past few years, I've brought that discipline to India's data protection law. I wrote the DPDP Act Compliance Handbook, From Law to Ground Reality, and this show is that book opened up one episode at a time. If you're new here, the 30-second background: in 2023, India passed its first comprehensive data protection law, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. In November 2025, the government notified the rules that make it operational on a phased clock that runs to full enforcement in May 2027. Together, they decide what every company, hospital, school, app, and shopkeeper in this country may do with your personal data and what you can demand when they get it wrong. 15 minutes a day, no jargon, real answers. Let's get into it. First, the legal architecture, because it disciplines everything after. Rule 6 requires every data fiduciary to protect personal data in its possession or under its control, including processing by a data processor on its behalf, by taking reasonable security safeguards to prevent breach, including at minimum the measures it then names. Hold both halves of that sentence. The name measures are a floor, not a ceiling. Reasonable still governs above them, scaled to your data's sensitivity and your operations risk. The proportionality instinct this series traced back to Puttaswamy, and the processor reach restates episode 20's constitution. The safeguards travel to everyone processing on your behalf, with the rule explicitly requiring your processor contracts to carry them. A floor, universally owed; a ceiling, individually assessed. Now the names. Name 1, securing the data itself, encryption, obfuscation, masking, or the use of virtual tokens mapped to the data. Read the drafting generosity, a menu of techniques unified by one idea: data that leaks in protected form fails to become a catastrophe. The program translation: encryption in transit and at rest as baseline hygiene, masking in the environments that don't need real values, your test systems, your analytics sandboxes, your support screens showing the last 4 digits instead of the whole number. Tokenization where identifiers travel between systems, and the audit question that operationalizes it. For each store in your data map, the map this series has built since the countdown, which technique protects it, and where's the configuration evidence? An inventory with a protection column is Rule 6's first artifact. Name 2, controlling who reaches it. Appropriate measures to control access to the computer resources used for processing. The program translation is the access control canon, role-based access tied to need. The billing clerk never seeing the diagnosis, as our healthcare episode put it. Joiner mover leaver discipline, because the access of people who changed roles or left is the classic quiet failure. Strong authentication on anything touching personal data, and privileged access management for the administrators who can touch everything. The evidence artifact, periodic access reviews, documented, the quarterly certification that the access list still matches reality. When the board's first security inquiries come, show me your last access review will be an early question, and organizations with dated review records will be having episode 10's better conversation. Name 3, seeing what happens, logs, monitoring and review to detect unauthorized access, enabling investigation and prevention of recurrence, with the retention requirement that quietly restructures operations, the logs, and the associated data needed for that detection and investigation retained for at least 1 year. 3 practical notes. Logging without monitoring is archaeology. The rule's own language pairs detection with the logs, so someone or something must actually watch. Alerting on the anomalies that matter at whatever sophistication your scale supports, from a managed service for the mid-market to a full security operations capability at the top. Second, the 1 year trail changes incident response arithmetic. When a breach surfaces months late, as breaches do, the year of logs is what makes the 72-hour detailed report of tomorrow's episode writable at all. And third, note the quiet tension this series flagged in the retention episode. You're erasing personal data on purpose-served logic while keeping security logs a year, reconcilable but only by design. Security logs as their own lawful, access-restricted, purpose-bounded store. The freezer discipline applied to your own telemetry. Name 4, surviving the bad day, measures for continued processing in the event of compromise, meaning backups and continuity. The data protection reading of backup discipline, backups that restore, tested, not assumed, backups protected at the same grade as production, because the attacker who can't reach your database will happily take your backup. And the restore replay discipline from the erasure episode so that recovery never resurrects the deleted. Ransomware turned this name from IT hygiene into board level survival. The rule makes it statutory. And name 5, the paperwork that makes it all travel. The contractual flow down to processors plus the technical and organizational measures ensuring the safeguards are actually observed. This is where Rule 6 meets the vendor discipline running through this whole series. The processor contract now has statutory content, the named safeguards imposed downstream with your right to verify. The annual processor attestation from the erasure episode grows a security section. Now the program view, because 5 names don't run themselves. If your organization already operates a recognized security framework, an ISO-style management system, a cert-in-aligned program, Rule 6 maps into it as a compliance overlay, same controls, now with statutory citations attached. Your job is the mapping document that says so. If you're building from little, the floor is your build sequence in priority order, protect the data, control the access, watch the logs, test the backups, fix the contracts, and the SME episodes later, this series scale each to small budgets. Because the flow was drafted technique flexible, precisely so, a 20-person firm and a bank can both stand on it. Either way, the standing discipline is the one this show repeats like a mantra. Contemporaneous evidence, configurations, reviews, tests, attestations, dated, because episode 10's penalty factors reward demonstrated safeguards, and the 250 crore tier attaches to their absence, not to the breach itself. The flow, evidenced, is the difference between an incident and a finding. Tomorrow, the day the flow fails anyway, Rule 7. What affected individuals must be told, in what words, how fast, the board's 2-stage intimation and the 72-hour report, the certain parallel track reconciled into one SOP, and the templates you'll draft before you need them, because during a breach, nobody writes well. That's today's episode of DPDP Daily. If it made this law a little clearer, do one thing for me. Send it to one person who needs it. That's how this show grows. Everything I covered today, with the templates, checklists, and audit frameworks behind it, is in my book, the DPDP Act Compliance Handbook from Law to Ground Reality, and I post one practical DPDP insight every morning. Find me on LinkedIn and on X and Facebook as well, under Harmeet S. Kapoor. One important note, this is education, not legal advice. For decisions about your organization or your rights, take proper professional advice on your specific facts. New episode every day. I'll see you tomorrow.